Right, let's begin.
恭敬大德圣听，为此法会，及一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们。无色了生，托斯利故得乐，殊真无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly, and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma wheel to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize numbers.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Your turn.
Tassa Bharato Arahato Sama Sambuddhasa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Your turn.
To the
Homage
blessed,
to the blessed,
noble,
noble.
and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo Sadanto Suche Doye Olahudi Sanmiao Sanputoshi. Your turn.
Mo Satando Su Che Do Ye Arahati Samyao Samputo Xie.
Let's recite together the verse for opening the sutra in Chinese. Wu Shang Shen Shen Wei Miao Fa Bai Qian Wan Jie Nan Zhao Yu Wo Jin Jian Wan De Shou Chi Yuan Jie Ru Lai Zhen Shi Yi. Okay, can you recite after me? Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound,
Subtle and profound,
rarely is encountered,
rarely is encountered,
even in a million eons.
even in a million eons.
But now we see and hear it,
But now we see and hear it,
accept it reverently.
accept it reverently.
May we truly understand
May we truly understand
Buddha's actual meaning.
Buddha's actual meaning.
师父上人，各位师兄大家阿弥陀佛, Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good evening to you in Berkeley, California, and good afternoon to us here in Gold Coast. And let's all find a seat. We're about to begin our sutra lecture on the Flower Garland Sutra, the Avatamsaka Sutra. And welcome. It's April 30th, a Sunday afternoon here in the Gold Coast. It's April 29th, a Saturday evening there in California. And those of you who are listening on YouTube archived, it will be a timeless time, which is actually when the Avatamsaka was explained. So we're going to start now, and first thing we do is invoke spiritual presence. When we come back, we're going to be on page 80. While we're chanting, we're going to go right to this text, which is also on the cover of the manuscripts here in Gold Coast. And what we do is we chant the Chinese, the name of the Buddha, the name of the sutra, that is to say, and the name of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who were present when the sutra was explained. All right? Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Ai Ji Ai Hai Hui Bo Tu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Ai Ji Ai Hai Hui Bo Tu Sa Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Ai Jing Ai Hai Hui Fo Pu Sha Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Ai Jing Ai Hai Hui Fo Pu Sha Namo Da Fang Ai Jing Ai Hai Hui Fo Pu Sha Namo Da Fang Fo Ai Jing Ai Hai Hui Fo Pu Sha. So welcome back to our global sutra lecture. We're spanning the globe, indeed, coming from southeastern Queensland all the way to Berkeley, California, and using, I'm on page 80, there we go, and using the magic of the intertubes and the interwebs, we're lecturing also via YouTube, so people can go any time of the day or night to catch up on the Avatamsaka Sutra, where we've come in our explanation of the seventh ground out of a chapter called the 10 Grounds chapter. And I wanted, first of all, to proudly show you our desktop. This is called Progress in Buddhism in Australia. What you're looking at is a picture from yesterday's Refuges and Precepts transmission. And you'll see the Sangha in the center row, and you'll see a 9-month-old baby who took refuge, and her proud parents. And then you've got folks in the back and front who took refuge, but also who took the 5 precepts, and 3 or 4 folks who renewed their precepts, having taken them before and let them slip or didn't pay attention, and so wanted to make them to refresh their significance in their lives. So that's an important moment to have so many folks from, let's see, if we counted, I bet we could come up with 7 different countries here, including France, and including New Zealand, and Indonesia, and California, can you imagine? Taiwan, and China, and Singapore, and Malaysia, and Vietnam. Yep, we did it. We made our international global refuge. So that's good news. We're looking at the 10 grounds chapter, which is talking about the Bodhisattva path. And I've got, after we look at the text, I've got an idea that I want to kind of open up and explore, because I haven't developed this idea to the place where I'm ready to present it as a lecture topic, but with your help, thinking it through, I think I can. And I think it's worth this idea that I'll explore with you all later. I think it's a new way of looking at the Mahayana, at our tradition, that hosts this Bodhisattva path, right? This understanding that there are lots of ways to be Buddhist in the world, not only our way, and our way, which is to say the northern tradition, the Mahayana, is not the most popular in the world. In fact, it's little known. Zen is much better known. Vipassana is becoming really well known. Mindfulness, this new creation, is the most popular, I don't want to say fad, that's too harsh, but it's mindfulness is carrying Buddhism into corporate boardrooms, into the military, into basketball teams at the NBA. That's really popular. And among these various ways of being Buddhist, our tradition with what the Bodhisattva path is probably the least known, among the least known. And there's a reason for it. And I think it's that first of all, it's relatively new, but we haven't packaged it. We haven't explained it in ways, in terms that people can grasp. And I think I've got one. I think I've got a way. So that's coming up. All right. Here's our viewer. I'm going to make this viewer vertical instead of horizontal. There we go. Okay. Here's our text today. We have a different one here at the Gold Coast, a different manuscript. So the one that we're going to look at begins with the words 若住第八智地中，而乃欲与心警戒. Okay, can you find that one? He may stay on the 8th ground of wisdom, which, by the way, is a typo. We need to add an H right on that 8. Did you find it? Let me find it. Did we explain that? Yeah. Explain that last week? So we are here. Roji, okay. Okay. I'm working with, let's see here, city. Okay, so delusion. I'm going to go back. So please turn back to this page, everybody who's here at the Gold Coast. Those of you who have this copy of the PDF version that I have, I want you to find 若住第八地. If you're looking at this document on the screen with me together, just follow me. Okay, we're going to start here again today. 若住第八地, 第八智地中. Ready? Palms together, please. And let's do it in unison. It's easier given our the time lapse between Australia and California. So let's read it together. Here we go. 若住第八至第中，而乃于于心境界。若凡观世潮人位，如莲处水无染沼. Okay, turn next to go to English. Go over to the right. Here we go. He may stay on the eighth ground of wisdom and yet go beyond the states of the mind. The way of Brahma King's contemplation surpasses that of ordinary humans. The way a lotus blossom rooted in the pond is not stained by the water. Okay. Here we go. And last week, I recall we had a picture of a lily to illustrate this, but we only touched lightly on this verse. We're talking about bodhisattvas on the seventh stage, the seventh ground. And this verse talks about the eighth ground. Missing an H there, that should be eighth, not eight. He may stay on the eighth ground of wisdom, and soon he will in the next chapter, and yet go beyond the states of the mind. Okay, what are we talking about? We're talking about a really good meditator who, after sitting for so long, after going through the perfection of dhyana, Chan Bolomi, which happened a few grounds ago, a few chapters ago, the bodhisattva is going progressively, right? This is step by step, kind of like going through school grades. On that state, the bodhisattva really learned meditation. And now when he or she sits, there are changes. It's really different. It's really different in this person's mind when they meditate. What would it be like? I'm going to talk to those of you who are meditators. And now that may be you, maybe you're going to be a meditator in the future. Often when we start meditating, all we see are things in the mind. We see thoughts, we see feelings, we see emotions, we see sensations, we see clouds. We don't see clearly at all. We see fog, We keep fading out into fuzz, into that state before sleep and just when you wake up, right? I've been to all of those states. Sometimes we meditate and what comes up is fear, right? Just a strong emotional response. Okay, perfectly, quote, normal. That's the mind before we sit. We sit for a while and we get some gongfu, right? We have a good method for meditation. We're counting our breath. We're using guan vipassana. We're using zhi shamatha, which is like sweeping every single state. Whatever method we use, over a while, what happens? The thoughts start to come into focus. The emotions tend to just kind of like fog before the sun, they vanish. And the thoughts that rise, we can see them now. Oh, I haven't had that thought for a while. Oh, that thought has come up 4 times in 1 hour. I must be concerned with that thought, right? So thoughts start to come into focus. At a certain point, a meditator will notice, especially if he has a teacher who's pointing out, that the space between the thoughts, you could even say the silence in the mind between thoughts, is starting to equal out in terms of time with the amount of time the thoughts occupy the mind. It's helpful for the teacher occasionally to say, have you noticed that there is some silence between those thoughts? Think of it, let's use another analogy. When was the last time you turned on a radio? Radio is still there, radio is still strong, right? And used to be, we would turn on a radio, we had to turn the dial to get to the station we wanted. If the station was at 1200 on the AM dial, we had to turn to 1200, right? Well, what do we have in our cars? Punch buttons. Back when we had radios in cars, right? You hit the button and the button takes you right to the station. What if, remember when you didn't have the station programmed to the button? You hit the button and what did you get? Static. In between, you found some of the bandwidth, excuse me, you found that spectrum, that place on the spectrum where there was no broadcast, no station, and all you got was static. Okay, analogy to meditation. Sometimes when we meditate, we just find nothing but static, right? But then over time, what happens is that static gets less and the signal, the station, gets more. Okay, you've had that experience, maybe. I'm talking to the meditators who actually meditate. Okay, now, how interesting. What is that silence in between the static, in between the thoughts, in between the emotions? Good question. Could that be what we call Xin Di, the ground of the mind? Maybe, maybe. All right, what about our Bodhisattva? He can go beyond the states of the mind now. This Bodhisattva has been meditating so well and so long that you could say the duality of the thoughts and the silence between the thoughts, the ground that nurtures thoughts and emotions and sensations and attitudes and views, now is transformed. The Bodhisattva has actually changed her Jingjie, the Xin Jingjie, the states of the mind, to something entirely different than before he meditated. Okay, what am I telling you? I'm telling you that when we meditate according to Dharma methods, big changes go on inside. What's it like to concentrate at this point? Wow. The way a Brahma King's contemplation surpasses that of ordinary humans. The way a lotus blossom rooted in the pond is not stained by the water. What's a Brahma King? Well, a Brahma King it's called a Deva, D-E-V-A. What is it in Chinese? Tianren. Okay, Tianren. Or even, in this case, Tian Wang, right? A Deva King, a Deva Raja, right, in Sanskrit. What's a Deva Raja? What's a Tian Wang? Okay, these are beings, just like us, like human beings, but they are beings that live in what's called a different Fa Jie, a different Dharma realm. What Fa Jie, Dharma realm, do they live in? Tian Fa Jie, or Tianren Fa Jie, the realm of Devas. Now, I was raised in a monotheistic culture, one Deva only, right? One God only. And if that would be a fairly common way of looking at beings in the sky, you could say, for a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim, all right? Hindu's not so. The Hindu Brahmanistic culture is polytheistic, many gods, okay? Polytheistic. If you were raised scientifically, if your parents were not churchgoers as they raised you, maybe you could be atheistic, saying no God whatsoever. Well, somewhere in between, most people fall. A lot of us are curious about what's it like in heaven. I know the old Christian hymn, what are they doing in heaven today, right? You want to know, what are they doing in heaven, where it's supposed to be free of suffering? The Avatamsaka Sutra answers all these questions. It's very interesting how, if I were speaking more casually, I would say it's very cool how the Avatamsaka Sutra takes us into the Tianren Fa Jie. It takes us into the realm of Devas and explains in great detail what it's like to be a god. So I was thinking, I'm heading down to Sydney in next week, next Saturday night for all of you in Berkeley. I'm not going to be lecturing. We're going to turn to the bhikshus at Berkeley Monastery to do the lecture. And I'm going to be in Sydney. And I was thinking one of the lectures I could talk about would maybe catch some interest, and it might even catch some flack from good monotheists. My topic of the lecture could be, what's it like to be a god? What are gods like? Because people are going to come to the lecture, you know, you're going to tell me because you've been there, right? What is the god's email? Is it deva.net or brahma.net? You must be a phony. We're going to get all the fundamentalists to come and protest, boycott my lecture. Look at this monk. He's going to tell us what gods are like. I'm going to say, don't take it from me. Take it from the Avatamsaka Sutra. Here it is right here. I'm just a translator. I'm not the source of it. I just translate it. That'd be a way to dodge it. But you could. Why would I do that? Because the Avatamsaka Sutra gives us lots and lots and lots and lots of information from the Buddha's point of view about what it's like to be a god. Not just one kind of god, but many, many kinds of gods, each one different. Okay, a Brahma king is a god. Fan Tian Wang. Okay, so this is a god, a deva. Devas and gods. Yeah, that's a dissertation. That's a thesis topic. What's the difference between devas and gods? Well, you're into comparative religion right there. Okay, but let's just say deva translates as resident of the deva realm. Okay, people who stay in the realm of the devas. Don't just call them gods. What are they like? A Brahma king's contemplation means this is a human being who learned to ru chan ding, somebody who learned to meditate and enter the dhyana states, who could master the states of the chan ding. 初禅, 二禅, 三禅, 四禅. This is somebody who could meditate and go into those states called first, second, third, and fourth dhyanas. That makes them a Brahma, Raja, a Brahma king. Okay, so interesting. Right away, we're talking about devas. That's interesting. How do I have the tsuga? Why am I so pretentious to think that I can tell you what this is? Because Master Hua, every night for 30 years said, let's look into the sutras. We're studying the Buddha. Let's let the Buddha's voice be heard. Okay? Not my creation. I'm reporting what Master Hua said and encouraged us to look into. So I'm a researcher into the realm of devas. I want to know what it's like to be a god. Interesting, huh? Brahma kings can meditate to the state of the dhyanas, and there is a realm in the devas realm called Fan Tian, the Brahma heaven. In fact, there are multiple layers of the Brahma heaven where all the devas there are in dhyana samadhi. What's it like? Well, number one, it feels great. It's blissful. They say, 禅悦为是法喜充满. May they take dhyana bliss as food. Now, this I can't quote from experience because I have not entered the dhyana samadhis to tell you personally. I don't make that claim. But the statement that is said, we say every day at lunch is, if you can enter dhyana samadhi, it's better than food. You actually don't have to eat if you're in dhyana samadhi and you feel perfectly full. No suffering here. Okay, so it must be very neat, very wonderful state. So Brahma kings can go into that chanding, that dhyana samadhi, and it's way beyond ordinary humans. Jingjie. Okay, back to the provocative title. What's it like to be a god? What are gods like? Sutra will tell you. Oh, it goes on and on. It's scattered through. There's not one place in the Avatamsaka where it talks about gods. There are multiple places. There's one, what is it called? Let's see. It's called, the name of the chapter, Pushen Sanmei, Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's Samadhi. And there's the Pusa Wen Mingpian, the Bodhisattvas asked for clarification. Various chapters where the speaker, it's the Buddha bestowing his energy on bodhisattvas. So it's not the Buddha, but it's the Buddha speaking through bodhisattvas. One of the most interesting points of this chapter is where it talks about warfare in the heavens. There can be wars in the heavens. Who's fighting? The Devas and the Asuras. The Asuras are these beings that are always trying to take their place in the heavens. And the Devas, who actually have the wherewithal to live in the heavens, throw them out. But they fight in the meantime. And this chapter is so amazing. It goes into the kind of weapons that the Devas use against the Asuras. It's really detailed, talking about the heavens. So number one, warfare in the heavens. Number two, what kind of weapons do they use? The Avatamsaka Sutra tells us. It's called the Heng Sure is the one I was looking for. Let me write that down for people here. Heng Sure. I need my notes page. There it is right there. Okay, here's the Chinese character Xian, Pu Xian the Xian. Xian, Shou, head. Tou, Shou, that one, leader. Heng Sure. Anybody who wants to follow up on this, go check out the Xian, second tone, Shou, third tone, Pin, of the Avatamsaka Sutra, and read all about what it's like to be a god when you go to war. Warfare in the heavens. I mean, that concept, Hollywood would love to make a movie out of Devas fighting, right? Could be a tremendous Marvel Comics, fight warfare among the Devas. The way of Brahma kings' contemplation surpasses that of ordinary humans. They're in another realm than humans. Their food is different, their clothes are different, their vehicles are different, their dwellings are different, their bodies are different, their lifespans are different, and their meditation is different. So our bodhisattva on the seventh ground is different than any ordinary human. The way what? The way a lotus blossom rooted in the pond is not stained by the water. We saw the picture last week of this beautiful lily, that orange, not, what was it, more kind of a fuchsia colored purple lily, is tall above the water, and the water can be muddy and murky, but the lotus or the lily blossom is very pure, not stained by the water. That's how this bodhisattva is. Okay, good. That was last week's verse. Got one more from last week. We'll review it and then move into today's first verse. Here we go. 此地虽超于惑众，不灭有惑非无惑，以无烦恼于中行，而求佛智心为足。Excuse me 1 second here. Put that in the center of the screen. Here we go. Although here he surpasses the many delusions, he doesn't bear the name deluded or delusion free, because no afflictions touch him as he cultivates. In seeking the Buddha's wisdom, he never stops. Okay. I think why this verse points out the seeming, it seems like, why does it want us to know this? That the Bodhisattva is already gone beyond what are called Ho. Ho is wrong views, delusions. The Bodhisattva believes in something and it's wrong, right? People believe in ideas that are incorrect. That's a delusion from the Buddhist point of view. He's gone beyond delusion, but he's not, the Bodhisattva doesn't hold the title deluded or delusion free. His transformation of his ego, or her transformation of her ego, is so thorough that no duality sticks now. It's not this or its opposite. Both dualities are gone. This Bodhisattva, once they got to the sixth ground, broke out of anything that is conscious, thereby dual, true or false, right and wrong. They're beyond that stage. No afflictions touch him as he cultivates. There's no self left. That view of a self is completely transformed, completely gone. So in seeking, in seeking the Buddha's wisdom, this Bodhisattva never stops. Still not home, still not a Buddha yet. So still seeking wisdom, but beyond duality at this point. That's how the Bodhisattva can teach, because you can't stop, you can't corner his mind, her mind. His or her mind only exists now to teach others, right? So I'm jumping ahead of myself. Ready? Going on to today's first verse. This is the verse Shi Jian Soya. Are you on the next page, everybody? Flip over to the next page. Okay. We're gonna lecture, we're gonna explain this one. So everybody who'd like to join me, please do. Let's read in unison. Ready? 世间所有众记忆，经书此论普明了，禅定三昧即神通，如是修行其成就。Okay, over to the English. Ready? Here we go. All the many arts and crafts of the mundane world he comprehends, an expert in texts, calligraphy, rhyme, and discourse, Chan samadhis, as well as psychic abilities. He accomplishes these cultivation entirely. Typo, mistake there, this cultivation entirely, not these. Okay. All right, good. We're, I mentioned not last week, but the week before, about the fifth ground. The Bodhisattva is now finishing the seventh ground, but on the fifth ground was where, because she could master dhyana samadhi, because he was such a good meditator, he was able to use all kinds of worldly knowledge to teach, and he wasn't turned by it. It goes on in detail in the fifth ground about here the Bodhisattva masters what are called Wu Ming Xue, the five-fold curriculum, we're calling it, right? What is that? This is liberal education from the Buddhist time. This was the humanities without eliminating the sciences. This was the curriculum. This was education in the Buddhist time, called the Wu Ming Xue. And for Confucius, they were called the Liu Yi, right? Confucius described an educated person as someone who mastered the Liu Yi, the six arts, usually translated as. You could say the six liberal arts. So the fifth ground said, yes, a bodhisattva at this point is learned. They're really good at all of the arts and crafts of the mundane world, including literary skills, texts, calligraphy, for example, rhyme and discourse. He was a poet. He was a public speaker. Furthermore, the bodhisattva could master all kinds of meditation to the point of mastering shantung, able to use the Wu Yan Liu Tong, the five kinds of spiritual vision, and the six kinds of psychic abilities. People remember what they were? What kind of cultivation this bodhisattva masters entirely? Okay, pop quiz. Jinchuan Shi, can you give me the six psychic abilities without looking at your notebook?
The heavenly eye, the
And
heavenly
1,
ear,
2,
ability to see past lives.
3.
The
The clock is ticking. 30 seconds, 29
juju
seconds,
tong,
28 seconds. 20.
the complete mastery. That's the kind of complete transformations of the arhat.
Okay, that was number 4. Number 5.
Reading people's thoughts.
Ah,
Mind
you
reader.
got it. That's 5.
And then
Number 6
is no outflows, freedom from outflows.
Oh man, full marks to Jinchuan Shi. Well done. Okay, hand the microphone to Alan. Alan, give them to me in Chinese. 六种神通用中文怎么说呢？第一，
神足通，
神足通 that's 第5. Okay, we'll count. Go ahead.
天眼通，第一个天眼通。
天眼通。What was the last one? 神足通，天眼通。
天眼通，天耳 right? 天耳通。And then他心通，他心通。
他心通。
然后宿命通。
You got them. Last one.
那个漏尽通。
You got it. Well done. Full marks to Alan. Boy, that's tough. Pop quizzes. You guys, you're going to bring your Buddhist dictionary next time. Okay, well done, both of you. Okay, English and Chinese. Those are called collectively shentong, psychic abilities. We used to call them for a long time. We translated that as penetrations, psychic penetrations, which is such a strange name. Why did we call them that? It's because Matthew's Chinese English Dictionary, tong, the first word defining the Chinese character tong was to penetrate. Tong da wu ai, right? So they became penetrations. They're not a penetration. What is it? It's an ability. It's a power, right? When I was growing up, the only thing that I knew that was similar was called the third eye. And it was mystical, right? If you could master the third eye, and it was located right here. That was about it. And yet we still talked about randomly, hey, this person says they know their past lives. And if you knew your past lives, it was always positive, right? Past life. Oh, you were, Cleopatra, if you were a woman, very beautiful queen. Or you might have been, Julius Caesar, an ill-fated Roman emperor. It was always somebody like that. You never said, oh, in my past life, I was a dung beetle. In my past life, I was a 3-legged dog in New Delhi. In my past life, I was a bear cub in Ontario in the forest. You don't think down, right? But that was pretty much it. That was as far as we knew about psychic powers of any kind, was we couldn't imagine. And so when we get to Buddha Dharma, oh my goodness, they're specific. We just heard about them, Tian Yin Tong, Tian Er Tong, right? You have the ability to see into the heavens and into the hells. Using an ability that you don't plug anything in, no batteries to change, but somehow with your very own apparatus, these sights open up to you beyond what your 2 eyes see. And then you have the ability to hear the conversations of insects. You can hear the conversations of beings in other galaxies with the Tian Er Tong. Amazing, right? Then you have the ability of knowing others' thoughts. Wow, you can be a mind reader. What's the official Greek name for seeing beyond this realm? Is called clairvoyance, right? Clairvoyant, clear seeing. What is it when you can hear others? The Tian Er Tong is called clairaudience. You can hear others' conversations, hear other sounds. And then you think, wow, Ta Xin Tong, a mind reader. You call you a mind reader. That's often called a psychic, right? You can know what other people are thinking. But then knowing past lives, wow. Now, here's Buddhism, which says, yeah, the Bodhisattva can do all these. The seventh ground Bodhisattva masters all of these. And then probably the most amazing, just in terms of visual, this is where, Hollywood would get in with computer graphics, CGI, is Shanzu Tong, translated variously as the complete spirit. We translated that, bad translation. That's Chinglish, right? What is it? It's these abilities are possessed by arhats, people who, in their Buddhist practice, in their meditative practice, can end birth and death. They're already arhats, all right? They're sages. And these sages, when it's an arhat, have what are called the Lohan Shiba Bian, right? The 18 transformations that arhats possess. What is it? Oh my goodness. It's amazing to hear about these. For example, arhats who have these abilities are able to walk on water as if it were solid land. Okay, what else can they do? They can drill through the ground as if it were water, or enter a mountain cliff. In other words, their bodies transform so that they can enter into solids and they can walk on top of liquids. Okay, furthermore, if you have the 18 transformations of the Arhat, if you have the Shanzu Tong of the Bodhisattva, you can travel through the air like a bird. You can fly. Whoa. Okay, right. Anybody who demands scientific proof at this point checks out. No, thank you. This is nonsense. Who says this is your dreaming, right? Well, sutras say. Okay, what else? Bodhisattvas who have this Shanzu Tong, called Pada in Sanskrit, right? The fulfillment of these abilities, can emit fire from the bottom of their body and water from the top of their body. Not that you necessarily want to do that, or the opposite, water from the top and fire from the bottom. They can make their body vastly huge so that they can actually stretch up and cradle the sun and moon in their hands, it says. Astonishing, right? And they can also make their body tiny, infinitesimally tiny. So astonishing, right? In other words, mastery over physical matter, complete mastery over physical matter with their own bodies. And a bodhisattva who has Shantong does this. Okay. So Tian Yen Tong, Tian Tong, Ta Xin Tong, Su Ming Tong. The bodhisattva who knows past lives, oh my goodness. When we get to the third ground and the fourth ground in the Avatamsaka, it tells in detail what this is like. If you know past lives, there's a section, is it the third or the fourth ground? I think it's the third ground, where it goes on and it says, yeah, you know all the events of one past life, 100 past lives, 1,000 past lives, 10,000 past lives, 100,000 past lives, infinite numbers of past lives. You know what you ate for lunch, what your surname was in a specific lifetime, where you lived, what clothes you wore on what day. Knowledge of past lives like that. And it boggles the mind. What did we talk? My goodness. That is an ability that a bodhisattva has? Right. And the answer, how is this possible? Because you know it. You were there. You remember. You see it. It's just as clear to you, they say, as an apple, as a wooden fish on the palm of your hand. This wooden fish on the palm of my hand is very clear, right? There it is. Nice wooden fish. How clear is that? That's how clear your past lives are if you have Su Ming Tong, says the sutra. Okay. Then it goes, the last one is called Lo Jin Tong, the ending of outflows, no further outflows. And that's a technical term. And then the sutra goes on to say, and Master Hua would be clear about, he'd make this point a lot. He would say, the first 5 of these 6 abilities are the possession of not only bodhisattvas, but ghosts can have them, spirits can have them, demons can have them, mo wang. And if you think about a demon who is able to make all these physical changes in their body, they know what you're thinking, they can see past lives. The last one is solely the possession of the Buddha. This lo jintong, the ending or the drying up of all outflows. Because why? Demons don't want to end their outflows. That's a lot of what feeds the demon state, is connection to outflows, which are physically pleasurable, or by which the demon king manipulates others. So no demon wants to jin lo, right, end their outflows. The Buddha does. And in that ending of all energy exiting the six senses comes the Buddha's wisdom. So that's a quick trip around the six psychic abilities, the six shentong that are bodhisattva here on the seventh ground. Masters Chanding, Sanmei, Qi, Shentong, Ru Shi, Xiuxing, Xi Cheng Jiu. He accomplishes this cultivation entirely. Okay, now probably it's good. Let's look at this verse as a whole. The bodhisattva takes psychic abilities and just puts them right back into the context of the fifth ground, where you learn the many arts and crafts of the mundane world: text, calligraphy, rhyme, discourse, meditation. Psychic abilities are nothing more than that. They're just another skill that the bodhisattva learns and masters in order to teach living beings. Okay, so it puts it right back into context. No big deal to have the ability to read minds, know past lives, see into realms beyond what I see and you see. It's just another tool. It's not a big deal. Bodhisattva accomplishes this cultivation entirely, masters it. Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting. Popular culture, I know Taiwan better than China, but I know it's true in China. I know it's true in Vietnam and in Korea and Japan. Wherever the Mahayana went and these abilities became known, people got a fascination with these superhuman abilities. Right? And so, for example, Wu Shapian, the martial arts novels and martial arts movies, particularly cinema, made heroes who were not bodhisattvas, but who had psychic abilities. And popular culture took things like Tianyan Tong and Su Ming Tong, Ta Xin Tong, the ability to read others' thoughts, the ability to see into the heavens and all, and took these out of their context of cultivation at the seventh ground and gave their heroes this ability. Right now in Taiwan, if you want to get rich as a realtor, as a real estate agent, you let people know that you have Tianyan Tong. And with my Tianyan Tong, I can tell you, you ought to buy this property because it is absolutely the best for you based on your past lives. Xu Ming Tong. Just take it from me. This is the one you want. Buy this one. Right? What else? Stockbrokers. Oh my goodness. The stockbroker who says, what should I? If you buy this one, you're going to get rich. This is the right one for you. My Tianyan tells me this. And they say that if you don't advertise that you have Shantong, you won't make any money as a stockbroker in Taiwan. It's become that cheap, 便宜, right? It's been completely devalued when you pull it out of its context. So, people make false claims that they use psychic powers to sell you stock, to sell you real estate. My answer to that is the old raspberry, right? Baloney, as we used to say when I was in Ohio when I was growing up. Just not true. That's called a hype. That's a marketing untruth, right? Anybody in Singapore, you ever run into that? No, yes, it's not. China, psychic abilities in realtors and stockbrokers? No. Taiwan, yo, let me tell you. Oh boy.
It's probably a skill.
What's that?
It's probably a skill.
It's probably a spirit?
A spill.
A spill?
Spill.
Spell that.
S-P-E-L.
A spell. It's a spell. Well, Master Hua would say, "Oh, 你真的有神通吗？会不会是鬼通啊？" Could it be a ghost spirit, ghost ability, right? Meaning, maybe you've had dreams, and in your dreams you've been able to see certain things, but do you trust that dream? Do you know where the source of that dream? Could it have been a ghost there telling you things? Well, the point is, you don't know. You don't know. And you can make the claim that you have Shantong, psychic abilities, but it's really hard to prove, isn't it? So we who hear that so-and-so individual has these abilities should be skeptical. If you have the requisite cultivation, if you've already cultivated to the point of the 5th ground, the 6th ground, here in the 7th ground, that's another story. A bodhisattva who, number one, is selfless, who is absolutely living to end others' suffering, then these psychic abilities arrive naturally as part of their what? Their vows. These are bodhisattvas who have gone beyond the self, based on vows, and that is why these abilities arrive. It's not because they're greedy and they want to make money, so they fool you into thinking they're different than everybody else. Not. So we should be skeptical of people who make these claims. Plus, if they really have psychic abilities, they will not let you know. They will not let you know. That is really the case. I witnessed the sad story of Feng Feng, Peter Fawn, Feng Bida, the Taiwanese author, who claimed that he was using his tianyan to cure people, and he got snowed under by the amount of requests that came in day and night asking for help with grandma's illness, and asking for help with the missing daughter, and asking, real life heartbreaking stories that came to him saying, help us. And he finally had to publish in his Tianhua journal saying, stop, please, stop making requests. My tianyan has closed, doesn't work anymore. I abused it. Stop trying to, stop asking for help. I'm sorry, I can't help you anymore. So anyway, people who make those claims, be skeptical. Bodhisattvas in the 7th ground, believe it. But look, they're just like calligraphy and meditation. It's a tool. It's a tool used to help others, not to help yourself or to get rich. Okay, clear? 清楚吗？菩萨修成起诸道，超过一切而成恒。殊地愿故，此有志。譬如王子立具足。Over here. Bodhisattvas here succeed in the 7th stage of the path and excel in every practice of the 2 vehicles. From vows made on the 1st ground, this wisdom comes. The way of prince is full of royal power. Okay. Remember, this is a really interesting analogy here about the prince. Bodhisattvas succeed in the 7th stage and go beyond. Excel here means not to do it well, it means to go surpass. They go beyond 2 vehicles practices because of the power of their vows that they made on the 1st ground. That's where this wisdom comes from. The way of prince is full of royal power. What is it like in this analogy. They say, I remember it was not long ago that we saw the prose version of this analogy. They say somebody who is born to a king has royal power from birth. When they show up, the bloodlines, if it's really the son or the daughter, we say princess, if it's really the heir of royal blood, you take one look and you see this person has the inborn traits of royalty. They have it. They radiate that kind of command, that kind of vision, that kind of, in Chinese you'd say qi zhi, right? That kind of, what's the word? When somebody has not magnetism, the person is just completely full of charisma, is the word I was looking for. They have it. Not because, and the sutra goes on to say, not because somebody puts them forward, not because a party brings them forward as their candidate, or not because they are pretenders. You take one look and you know this person is not a leader. They don't have the gravitas, right? They don't have the foundation in Dao, the Heng. They don't have the virtue to lead. They don't have it. So you can take one look and you know. It says, a prince is full of royal power from birth. It's in this person's bones. This person is a warlord. They're a pretender. They're motivated by what? They're motivated by greed. They're motivated by anger. They're motivated by ambition. They are a pretender. They have lust for power, right? You take a look, oh, not the same thing. And then the prince walks in and all questions are answered because this person has it in their cheekbones. You know, they have it in their posture. You can see this is a shenglai, 就是王子, right? This person is a prince from birth. I think that's a really interesting analogy that the sutra is talking about that. Did you, I'm going to ask Heng Sure, did you remark on that analogy the first time it came through? That stuck in my mind. I don't know if you saw that.
Dharasa, can you repeat this analogy? Or it's
okay? It's the question. It came up. Now, you had to have been there that week, or else you wouldn't have. I could dig it out of my archive of text, but I don't have it here. You got it in your books. You have it in your sutra. It came in the what's called the reprise section, the boilerplate section. Not like it must have been 3 months ago when we were here. It said, "What is the seventh stage bodhisattva like? It said, he surpasses the two vehicles the way a prince has royal power from birth." And that's how we know this bodhisattva is different from the Shravakas, the voice hearers, and the solitary Buddhas. So my question, I put Heng Sure on the spot. My question was just, when that came through earlier, did you remark on it? Did you notice that analogy?
Yeah, with the royalty, I noticed something like aristocracy, for instance. This is something
Now we're into Polish social structure, right? Polish royal history.
It actually, it's disappeared.
Did you all know? Go ahead,
Disappeared.
Michel. Yeah.
It is disappeared after 1945, more or less, because communism likes equality for everyone. But it's still some people.
I don't know. Are you allowed to say communism on the air? Be careful. Be careful now.
Okay.
Choose your words carefully. I don't want to get
Radical socialism.
Radical socialism. Okay, there we go.
So it's interesting that you cannot directly see who is who, but some people who were born in this aristocratic families, they have something interesting in their behavior. I don't know. Maybe this is part of the gene, part of that how they were raised by
Uh-huh.
parents. You know, the whole etiquette, and I don't know, all this chemistry make this them kind of different.
Okay, good. Yeah, I had the same thoughts. And I have to say, it was my second trip to Poland where I saw, where were we? I forget. Maybe you can recall, Chinchenshire. There was, it might have been in the Warsaw Uprising Museum, but there were the coat of arms of Polish kings. And I remember maybe it was the national symbol, the way America has an eagle. In Poland, there were crossed swords and there were eagles. What was it was called the coat of arms of Polish kings. And I think it might have been you, in fact, or somebody who on our trip said, oh yes, that Poland back in its proud days of proud history had emperors. Remember, you know what I'm talking about? There was the coat of arms with was it eagles or what was it that was so?
We call, I don't know the English word. I think this is we call the herb, that any different person have different sign. When you go back to like 20th century back, you can find out.
20 centuries back, right?
Yeah,
right.
Or something. Yeah, it's
so Poland is one country that has in its history, in its historical memory, royalty, right? Has this race of emperors. And Poland was a very powerful country ruling lots of what is now called Central Europe. It's only in the last couple centuries that Poland has been repeatedly invaded by aggressors, both from the Western side and from the Eastern side. So here's, a contemporary European example of what the Buddha is describing in the Avatamsaka, of people who are born into royal family, into royalty. And when the young future king shows up, people immediately identify that this indeed is royalty. Lots of Jin Yong, not Jin Yong Shi, but Jin Yong, the author, the Hong Kong author, lots of his martial arts novels that are beloved and known by almost every male reader in Taiwan and China and Vietnam and and overseas. People love Jin Yong's martial arts novels, and there's a common theme of the usurper, who is it, a warlord or the rebel bandit, overthrows the aging legitimate dynasty, and the heir has to go into hiding, right? He has to hide out in the mountains, learns his martial arts and plans his return to the throne. And then the bandit chief, rules illegitimately on the throne for a certain number of years, and then the rightful heir appears, and with one look, everybody bows. They bow their head and they promise fealty and their oath to the true heir. And that's the energy of our bodhisattva, who, the way a prince is full of royal power by blood. You see it in their bone structure, you see it in their demeanor, right? Their posture. They have wei, 有威有德可敬，有威可威，有德可敬. Right, that's their virtue is on full display. Okay, that's our bodhisattva. I really enjoy those martial arts novels of when the true king is revealed and everybody takes a look. 譬如王子立居祖. Yeah, this is somebody who's strong by birth. We will follow you and restore the rightful lineage to the throne. Say those romantic novels, right? Okay, next verse. Here we go. 成就深深仍尽道，心心寂灭不取正。譬如乘船入海中，在水不为水所溺。His success is profound, and he advances on the path. Each thought is stilled, but he doesn't choose cessation. Just as sailors go to sea in their ships and remain untouched by the water. Okay, this is very interesting. Why? It's talking about state of mind. What's the seventh ground bodhisattva like? He is successful. He advances on the path, but guess what? His mind is really quiet. Her mind is really quiet. No thoughts move anymore. Each thought as it rises is immediately stilled, but it's not nirvana. From here on, these verses are making this point. You'll remember, just as we finish the chapter, it was really making the point that the bodhisattva could stop, but doesn't. Could enter nirvana like the Buddha from the seventh ground, doesn't do it. Okay. Here the bodhisattva really shows the power of vows. And it makes the analogy to what are called the two vehicles, to arhats and pratyeka Buddhas, solitary Buddhas, who do stop. They say, we're done. We're out of birth and death. All of that misery, that pain, that confusion, the state of living beings with their desires and their attachments. We don't want that anymore, say the two vehicle cultivators. Bodhisattva says, yep, that's my workshop. That's my neighborhood. That's my hood. I'm going back there. Because why? That's a painful place. I don't hurt anymore. They're hurting like crazy. I've got to go back. That's where I do my work. The most dramatic example of that would be Earth Store Bodhisattva, who goes to the hells where it's really, really dire, where you just don't want to spend an extra second. Earth Store Bodhisattva says, yep, I'm going there. The analogy given in our verse is what? It's like a sailor who goes to sea in a ship and stays dry, thank goodness, or else they drown. Bodhisattvas, the sailor, the ship's captain, Piru Cheng Chuan Ru Hai Zhong. What keeps the sailor dry in the midst of the ocean is a thin layer of wood or metal, the hull of the ship. I was reading the late Tim Testu's journal. He wrote his autobiography about his time before he met Master Hua and then after he met Master Hua. This is Bhikshu Heng Ju. His name was Tim Testu as a layman. And he was the first Sambu Ipai cultivator in America. And he wrote his autobiography. What was Tim? Tim was a diver in the submarine service of the US Navy. Tim's boat was called the Rock, the USS Rock. And in an era of atomic submarines, the USS Rock was the last diesel submarine to still go to sea, to be still fully commissioned. And it was a very funky but lovable boat, went under the water like a submarine. And Tim writes about just astonishing stories about his time in the submarine and what it's like to be a submariner. And he got a really, really fine captain, a captain who was legendary in the US Navy. And I've forgotten the captain's name, but Tim tells this story. And the captain said, okay, we need a diver. Every ship needs a ship's diver. Every submarine needs needs a diver. The diver goes out of the sub with scuba tanks on and repairs the hull, clears away debris, inspects potential leaks, goes out to check stuff deep under the water. You have to be tough. You got to be like a Navy SEAL, that, elite corps of men who are harder than you, faster than you, more courageous than you. We need one. Who wants to do it and volunteer? Well, Testu says, me, I'll do it. He's this fearless man. He qualified as the training of a ship's diver. He goes, tells you the story. And he describes what it's like to be under the ocean, right? Deep down. And death can happen to all of the men on the submarine, 100 plus men, crew. You can die a million ways under the water. And what do you do as the diver? You go out of the submarine to do things that need to be done. Courageous, fearless men. And in the process, he describes the thin skin of a submarine hull, holding pressure of being underwater. And he's got all the statistics of how many, hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure is on each square inch of that submarine hull, and what it's made of, and how fragile it is. And everybody on the submarine knows everybody else's job. There are engineers. Tim was an engineer when he wasn't a diver. He was in there down in the engine room working on this diesel engine. But there are communications experts who do sonar, right? There are radar experts who do radar. There's the radio guy who's there listening on the radio. There are cooks. There are messmates who work in the kitchen. There are all these different jobs. There are, fuel experts. There are weapons experts. Every single sailor on the submarine knows everybody else's job. In case one guy goes down, you've got to get that job covered, because one person not doing the job can sink the submarine. So it's an amazing experience to be a submarine crew in the navies of the world, not just the US Navy, but Tim was writing from the US Navy. And Tim was that, plus he was the diver. So look at the sailor who goes to sea in a ship and remains untouched by the water. How does that work? There's that little shell of wood, if it's a wooden ship, of fiberglass, if it's a catamaran, of steel, if you're it's an alloy, then if you're in a submarine. And astonishing. And yet it's enough to let you go out into that hostile environment. Water is a hostile environment for humans. We need to breathe oxygen. There isn't enough in the water for human lungs. So what do you have to do? You need a boat, you need a ship. So that ship needs to be dry so you can go out in the water, as every sailor in history has done, and come back safely. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, that's a big demand. That's why boat rights, right? Ship builders have been an honored profession all the time, all along. So pretty amazing. So yeah. Just as sailors go to their sea and their ships remain untouched by the water, so does the Bodhisattva go where? Into his mind, and is not touched by the thoughts, by the emotions, by the sensations, by the states, by the views, by the afflictions, by the attachments, by the ignorance, all the things that are part of our minds before we learn how to use them. The Bodhisattva, just like a sailor, goes into the mind and comes back out untouched, fully in charge, able to navigate through the mind and emerge back whole and normal. So beautiful sutra describing how the Bodhisattva on the seventh ground survives and thrives. Okay. Now next week is not my turn. Next week is we're going to ask the monks of Berkeley Monastery to lecture, because I'm going to be down in Sydney talking to, let's see, it'll be Sunday night for us. We're going to be going to a kind of if we were musicians, it would be called a house concert. We're going to a home of a disciple who regularly invites his Buddhist friends into his home for roundtable discussions. And that's going to be the 6th event in Sydney over 3 days. So looking forward to that. If you have friends in Sydney who are in Australia and would like to take part in the events, please do. How did they get in touch? The Buddhist Council of New South Wales, at the BCN Buddhist Council, NSW, BCNSW. They will have our trip itinerary, tell you where to be and when. Okay, so far so good. Now, I wanted to talk, I mentioned at the start of the lecture that I have an idea that I wanted to share with people, and I need to get your feedback. And this is the idea I wanted to, this is one of those ways of explaining our tradition that I want to develop. And the theme of it is what makes the Mahayana different? It's that people who walk the Bodhisattva path develop relationships. And it's by developing relationships that the Bodhisattva becomes a Buddha. Okay, now what's the background idea? Let me take a step to the side. That strikes me as a novel, an unusual way to describe this, because if anybody told me before I started meditating that if I was going to follow the Bodhisattva path, I was going to be full-time an expert in exploring relationships, I would say, wrong religion. Why? The Arhat wants to end relationships. The hermit, the solitary Buddha, goes out into caves and observes the changes of the seasons, right? The buds of the flowers in the spring fall to the ground in the autumn, their life cycle over, and then they become fertilizer, So that's what where's the relationships there? And this is somebody who, I was silent for 6 years. What relationships did I explore? So, okay, why do I think that? From the Buddha's point of view, and I've heard Master Hua say the highest state is Tongti Dabe, is same body, great compassion. What is Tongti Dabe? It's the self is so invisible, so gone, that you are in relationship with every sentient creature at all times. There is nothing that is not relationship for a bodhisattva who has merged with all sentient creatures. Tongti, same body. There's no bit of me that is not in relationship if I have realized that kind of great compassion. Guanyin Bodhisattva's 1,000 hands and eyes are precisely prepared to create relationships with all living beings. And here's our Bodhisattva who has no self other than the relationships of, you could say, savior to those living beings needing rescue, right? Yesterday at our precepts and refuge, yesterday, Sangwe Wujie, three precepts and 3 refuges and 5 precepts yesterday. The end of the ceremony says, even though living beings are infinite, I vow to rescue them all. I vow to save them all. I vow to take them all across. And then it says it again. It says, 自信, 众生是缘度. I vow, I promise that I'm going to take across all the sentient beings of my inherent nature. 自信, 众生. So here's the Bodhisattva saying, I need to establish a relationship with myself if I'm going to be a Bodhisattva. All right, so there's my theory. It's relationships. We're talking about relationships. If that's true, how come I, right this minute, Heng Sure, talking now to everybody, why don't I see it that way? why do I still feel like I'm inside my body and you're all outside? That there's only me in here and I don't know what you're doing out there. And I'm not even clear about who the me is. Why is that? The answer is because multiple reasons. One is I fully invest in the sense that myself really exists. And further, I have selective ignorance that makes me think that I stop at my skin. I don't see far enough to know that the self is constructed out of views, and those very views keep me blocked. They keep me dark and ignorant of what the Buddha sees. My eyes and the Buddha's eyes are not the same eyes. But what we do as we learn to cultivate, as we progress into the Dharma, is just like last week, I had a camera and it was a zoom lens, and I could zoom out and find wide focus, and I could zoom back and find really narrow depth of field. That selective focus is what I can't do yet. I'm still stuck on a certain depth of field, and I can only focus on a narrow range of things that I look at. In other words, my views, my jian jie, are still what you call xie zhi xie jian, still wrong. I still think that I'm in the center and everybody else is outside me. What a bodhisattva does as he or she cultivates, especially in the 10 grounds, is their ability to shift focus changes. When we cultivate the Buddha Dharma, we change our eyes. One reason why we're interested in the sutra is it gives us new eyes. When we look through the sutra's lenses, when we look through the bodhisattva's eyes, we see, oh, actually, that's right. I'm not alone inside my skin. That's a wrong view. When I look through, when I borrow the bodhisattva's lenses, the sutra's lenses, the bodhisattva's vision, I realize I just refocus. Go, yeah, oh, that's right. I have lived before. This is not my only body. And furthermore, I'm deeply related to every living being. And we're all in the dark until we realize Buddhahood. And it's possible. Here's a bodhisattva who has such an infinite source of lenses that they can focus in a way that lets you see them as their best friend. And then they teach you, and you wake up, and then they switch lenses and they're somebody else's boss. And then they can take somebody, then they become somebody's mom, and they use that relationship to take them across. And so it's this ability to selectively develop relationships authentically, because you yourself don't see, you're not blinded by the views of me in the middle, most important one in the world, et cetera, these wrong views that we have. That the bodhisattva uses those relationships to take others across. And when I read it that way, it's like, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. So how about me? What relationships do I develop in my Mahayana practice, my great vehicle practice? And obviously, you start with the ones closest to you. How about your parents? How about your kids? Right? If you're a parent, if you're the parent, you have an incredible opportunity to draw near young lives and to give them different eyes than the ones that keep them locked into their little, modular identity as this broken unit, broken off from everybody else. You can influence your friends, your spouse. Oh my goodness, the person you've vowed to spend your life with. What a wonderful opportunity to train each other in other views about, other than I'm just me, pursuing my desires, running from my pain, lost and afraid in a world I never made. So it's relationships. That's the Buddha Dharma's gift from the Mahayana point of view. Anyway, going to develop this idea. That's about as far as I've carried it at this point. And I think there's a lot there. And it's really different than what I expected when I first, sat down to meditate. That ultimately I'm going to be developing relationships on my way to Buddhahood. And the affinities that the Bodhisattva creates are the relationships that carry you to Buddhahood. What is it? Shang, Cheng Fo Dao, Xia Hua Zhong Sheng. Ultimately, I'm going to become a Buddha, and immediately I'm going to do it by developing the relationships to Hua Zhong Sheng, take beings across. So what do you think? Jin Chuan, does that hold water? That 24 karat?
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good way to present the Mahayana, because I think modern times is probably one of the most sorely needed areas that people are looking for some guidance in. It seems like in some ways, because of how our society is now, relationships have become almost as a default kind of broken. Families don't stay together. Friendships are you kind of hang out with each other because you kind of share an experience or something, but then like we actually ask for loyalty.
You're too much of a monk. This is where the relationships are.
Yeah,
right
there
here.
you go. Yeah, a Facebook like button.
Right.
So, but I think there's definitely also a feeling like, how do I do this? Like, what is this? How do I actually do my relationships? And I don't know. There are many places people can look for guidance. So I think that would be an interesting idea.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I want to develop that one. The time is to end the lecture has come, but I wanted to mention to the three monks I'm looking at there in the monastery, and Jin Heng Sure, who's in Malaysia, will soon be traveling. We at one point had a great idea over lunch in the Berkeley Monastery, and it was to create an online Buddhist lecture hall. Wang Shang Fo Jiao Jiang Tang, or what is it? Wang Lu Fo Jiao Jiang Tang. Buddhist lecture hall was a name that Master Hua gave to a lot of his monasteries, Hong Kong, San Francisco, and other places. And actually, the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery could easily be called the Berkeley Buddhist Lecture Hall, and it would be, would suit it, that description. We, at one point at lunch, all of us were sitting there saying, why don't we create a broadcast Buddhist lecture hall, kind of like a vlog, a video web podcast, or like a podcast itself, but use video. We have the tools. We just need the organization to get topic by topic, turn the cameras on, and have Jin Fo Shi, Jin He Shi, Jin Chuan, Jin Xian, myself sitting there looking very awesome, right, with a smile, right, and saying, today we're going to talk about relationships in the Mahayana. Today we're going to talk about why you can be a vegan and still stick to the middle way. Why a vegan diet is not an extreme diet. Today we're going to talk about filiality. Today we're going to talk about meditation technique, things like that, and have it be a regular series. And we all went, wow, that'd be a really good idea, and then dropped it promptly, didn't talk about it again. So I know we've got our members of our tech team right there. We've got Alan and Ihuan and Jerry behind the camera, behind the computer, and others, and everybody else, Yuanlin and Locke and everybody. We should put these talents to work. We got Kai there, Kai with his camera, faithfully recording all this. We should put these talents to work to put on a Buddhist lecture hall online, short, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, 15-minute segments, and tap these talents and get the knowledge out there so we can get the feedback from people to say, this makes sense, but what about this? Did you think of this? So that was a suggestion. And I really would like to do it. I could provide lots and lots of important things, such as this one. I'm going to show you one of the things that our online Buddhist lecture hall could feature, which would be videos of turkey banquets. Check out 3 Australian bush turkeys eating lunch at the Paramita House. Look at that. That was filmed 2 days ago. How about that? Nobody here in the room can see what I'm seeing. This is astonishing. We've got 3 bush turkeys eating birdseed on my deck. Oh boy. So that's, I have that to offer. And I was invited by Amaravati Buddhist Monastery in England to give their Sunday Dharma lecture with the condition that I not bring my guitar. They said, please do come and give the lecture. Could we ask you not to bring your guitar? 可以, no problem. However, I do all of my songs without the guitar as well, So what about that? Is it you don't like the songs or you don't like the guitar? So they don't like the guitar. That's perfectly fine with me. We will do online Buddhist lecture hall broadcasts with the guitar and without the guitar, with the banjo and without the banjo, with the guqin and without the guqin. So, okay, anyway, that's an idea. So I'm giving everybody notice that we're gonna need some encouragement to get our online Buddhist lecture hall working. Jerry, how many folks were online today? He's gonna count me. 35, my goodness, that's great. We've got 6 of us here 7, including myself here in Queensland. So, Jinchuan, would you like to give some announcements? The 10,000 Buddhas repentance is over. What's going on at Berkeley Monastery?
Okay. Actually, first, tomorrow there's bathing Buddha's birthday at the City of 10,000 Buddhas. So people would like to go up to take refuge in the 5 precepts, like what they just did in Australia. Can go to the City of 10,000 Buddhas tomorrow. We will actually also have a bathing Buddha ceremony here at Berkeley Monastery on May 6th, Saturday, May 6th, starting at 9 a.m. People are also welcome to come here to do bathing the Buddha. And then maybe a couple of announcements. Oh, also Abhayagiri monks will be coming this Tuesday for their regular tea and Dharma, starting with tea time, and then sutra lecture, or a Dharma talk at 7:30 at night. I don't know if there's anything else specific for Berkeley. I think that's it. The other thing to announce is that we have the summer scheduled and retreats have been open for registration. So there's Buddha Root Farm, which is July, the first week of July. If you want, you go to oregon.berkeleymonastery.org. I think you should sign up soon because I heard there's something like 70 people already signed up.
Oh my goodness.
Which was what I heard last night in a lecture.
Yeah, and it can't be too many more than that.
Yeah, so if you want to go, I would recommend signing up as soon as you can. Otherwise, you'll go on the waiting list. We have the Guanyin recitation retreat that is following that, the second week of July. You can sign up for that with the University Extension. It's drbux.org. And then third week, we have a work week at our local student retreat center in Ukiah. And the fourth week, we have a retreat with Dharma Master Heng Sure and Doug Powers on, I can't ever say her name, Irigare and Nagarjuna. Irigare and Nagarjuna. So it's like a meeting of East and West, modern Western feminism and Eastern Buddhist wisdom. So that would be coming up the last week of July.
Is that Sudana Center schedule online anywhere?
Yeah, if you just go to drbux.org, you'll see it on your web
Okay,
browser.
drbux.org. I put it right there. I typed
Yeah.
it on the screen for everybody. Sudana Center. That's our center in Ukiah for retreats and for gatherings and for the future. Okay, and oregon.berkeleymonastery.org, drbu.x.org. Look for Sudana Center retreats. Okay, sounds pretty rich. Lots of stuff happening. More?
Oh, that's it.
That's it. Okay, good indeed. All we have here are turkey dances. Multiple turkeys dancing for birdseed. That's pretty entertaining, you know, out here in the Australian bush. Okay, I'm going to put the dedication of merit on the screen there and invite everybody to please join me in transferring the merit. We are facing starvation in 3 countries in Africa, and there will be millions of people suffering on the planet. And if we could eat lower on the food tree, on the food pyramid, less energy intensive food such as plants, the earth could feed more of us. All right, so that's one place to apply our efforts and our sincerity. May all be fed. Right, here we go. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with life, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. All right, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Amitofo. Bye-bye.
I think the Buddha was found